Hey, everybody, Bill Faith from Build Short Term Rental Wealth, and thank you for joining me today. A very special interview that I'm going to be doing for you on a Saturday. This dude gave up his afternoon just for you guys. I'm really excited about this. I got to meet him for the very first time in person at the STR Wealth Conference last week. They absolutely annihilated the stage. Tony and his wife Sarah opened up for us and were just amazing. I'm sure you've seen him on their podcast. They're the Real Estate Robinsons. I've got Tony here with me today, Mr. Tony Robinson. How are you today, buddy?
Bill, thanks for having me on, brother. I appreciate it, man. And I'm hoping I can give some good value to the audience today.
Absolutely. I got to make a note real quick. I got to start getting guys that aren't so good looking and in shape, as guests because they make me look really bad. We'll have a little bit of fun today, that's for sure. So I just want to start off, Tony, I get this and I'm sure you do as well. You must have had millions of dollars when you started in this industry, right? I saved up for 4 years to save $126,000 to buy my first property. You and your lovely wife, Sarah, that I got to meet last week, you guys went from 0 to $10 million in 2 years. How did it start? Take me all the way back to how did you guys make the decision to start doing this?
Yeah, Bill. It's been a crazy ride for us, man. And when we first got started, I was in the corporate world. I was a senior manager at a company and worked in supply chain, and I was grinding it out there 40, 50, 60 hours a week. But I always knew that I wanted to eventually step away from being a W-2 employee and having something that was my own. And I love the idea of real estate investing. And I started off in the world of long-term rentals. But for those of you that know that space, when you first get started, you might get a few $100 per door in that space. So when I did the math of man, how many of those long-term rentals am I going to need to really scale up and leave my job? It was a lot. So we bought 4 long-term rentals, and then early 2020, we made the transition into short-term rentals. And we bought our first one in August of 2020, just with capital that we had saved up from kind of grinding away at our jobs. We bought our second one in September, so about 30 days later, again, just with money that we had saved up. We bought our third one in November. And then, Bill, believe it or not, a month later, I ended up losing my job. So
Wow.
not only, so we're 3 properties into the short-term rental thing. 2 days before Christmas 2020, I ended up losing my job. Now, luckily, we had saved up a lot of money while I was working, and my wife and I kind of had a decision to make. It's like, either I can go back out and go back into this workforce and just chew me up and spit me out and show me how little I actually meant to it. Or I said, babe, if you give me 12 months, I was talking to my wife. I said, babe, give me 12 months. Let me see how big we can grow this real estate business that we've started. And, Bill, I turned this little side hustle of real estate into an obsession because ultimately it was my livelihood that depended on it. So we scaled and bought another 12 properties that next year. And we did that mostly, Bill, through partnerships. We had already kind of established ourselves in the space through the initial properties we had gotten set up, and we just kind of leaned into that to help us continue to scale.
Right. So you guys did not have millions of dollars to get started.
We did not have millions of dollars to get started.
I mean, you
No.
guys live in Southern California, right?
We do.
So I
Yeah.
mean, if you're listening and you don't live in SoCal, even if they're making like 300 grand each a year, they don't have $1 million, to get into real estate. So you said, and one of the things that I think is really interesting that I catch on what you said is that you bought 12 properties in that second year, but you also had partnerships. What were the why partners, and kind of how did that look like for you to be able to scale?
Yeah. So first on the why piece. So again, I lost my job, so I wasn't bankable, right? I had a little bit of money in the bank, but I
Right.
had no active income coming in. So my ability to go out and get debt by myself was zero. So I had to find a way to fund these deals. And at the time, the 10% down second home loans were still really popular and favorable in terms of the rates and things that were being offered. So I was able to go out to folks and say, hey, if you guys carry the debt, most of those folks are putting down 10%. You guys carry the debt. You guys bring the capital. I've already got the deals. I'd been fortunate enough to find really good deal flow in the markets that we were working in. So a lot of these were off market deals that they wouldn't have access to otherwise. I said, I've already got the deals. I'm going to set them up. I'm going to manage them long term. All you got to do is bring the capital. And that's how the majority of those deals went. And we just kind of split everything down the middle.
That's a pretty sweet deal, especially for all of you guys out there that are looking to co-host and make your 20%. The thing that you're missing is you're not getting any equity. So you're getting distribution on those just like a full equity partner, right? But you're
Right.
bringing the deal, you're operating. I assume there's no additional, you're just splitting revenue. It's not like an additional property management or co-hosting fee, right?
Yeah, most of them are just straight down the middle with equity. We do have some where we took a reduced equity stake in exchange for a property management fee, but I think preferably we like the equity play
Probably in
because
the beginning to generate
yeah,
a little bit more cash
exactly.
flow.
Yeah, our first three, it was kind of a less equity play with more or with more property management fees, and after that, it was just all equity.
That is super interesting. Those of you that are watching at home, I'm being joined by Tony Robinson, the lesser half of the real estate Robinsons, right? We
Said
got
it
to give Sarah
perfectly.
all the credit.
Said it perfectly.
Dude's got like 70,000 Instagram followers. Go to Instagram and you'll see he gets like 900 likes every time that he posts something on there. They're also super duper good at branding and at social media, which I'm a proponent that I don't think anybody should co-host or even buy real estate if you don't know how to market it on your own, specifically in the short term, the STR space. It's something that's really needed. So Tony and I are here to take any of your questions that you guys have. Obviously, we're doing this live broadcast on Facebook and on the YouTube channel. So number one, please say hello. Introduce yourself to Tony if you're in my community, so we can see who we're communicating with, and then drop your questions in the comments. So Tony, you and Sarah did a great presentation on last week at the STR Wealth Conference about social media. How, and you guys have a big following. You know, you're doing the rookie podcast for Bigger Pockets. How big has that been for you guys to leverage social media, to find those deals, to find those partners, you know, and just everything that you guys have done to grow your empire?
Bill, I would not be here today if it wasn't for the brand that my wife and I have built. And we obviously Bigger Pockets has played a huge role in that. But even before I was the host for the Real Estate Rookie podcast with BP, Bill, I had my own podcast, and I started that podcast 4 months before I even got my first real estate deal. So I was interviewing people 3 times a week. I was putting on 3 episodes a week for, I think, the first 6 months. I was doing that 3 times per week. And my entire goal with that was to build my network, was to build my authority in that space, because I didn't know anyone, right? I was an absolute no one in the world of real estate investing. So that was my initial foray into it. And then through that podcast of my own, I fell into Bigger Pockets, and that kind of snowballed. Then we launched a YouTube channel, and then the TikTok and the email, and everything starts to build. But I would say the biggest benefit that we've gotten, Bill, and I mentioned this in that presentation at STR Wealth, was we've gotten amazing deals, and we've been able to find the capital to fund those deals, all because of the brand that we built.
That's awesome. And, just so you guys know, listening, that stuff just doesn't happen overnight. That takes hard work. It takes consistency. It takes time. And all of us usually quit before we hit that apex and kind of turn that corner in deals like that. It's interesting. I did not know that for you and what you guys did. For me, I spent the first 7 months when I started Build Short-Term Rental Wealth in everybody else's Facebook group trying to build mine. Not like this sleazy linking back to mine, but just helping and answering
Providing
questions
value.
4, 5, 6 hours a day. And if you're trying to break into co-hosting, you're trying to break into management, you're trying to find deals, wholesale, whatever, you just got to put in that work. It's kind of Gary Vee style, right?
Yeah, it's almost like what's that? It's like the duck when they're swimming across the pond, or the swan or whatever. Like, they look super graceful above the water, but below the water, there's all this like activity happening.
Their
And that's
legs
what
are
it's like for
moving.
most people. Exactly, their legs are moving, and like people see me, they see you, Bill, and they're like, "Oh man, these guys have figured it out," but they don't see all that activity that's going on behind scenes to kind of keep that whole thing going.
Agreed, 100%. Hey, Joey, John, Becky, Dallas, thanks for joining us. Somebody was actually here from Austin too. You're actually going to be in Austin in a few weeks, aren't you?
Yeah, we will be in Austin. So we're hosting our next event, Bill, and I appreciate that call out there, man. But we're hosting our event. It's called the STR Summit in Austin, Texas, April 10th through the 12th. So, dude, our whole goal is to teach people kind of the A to Z's of short-term rental investing. So I'll be on stage. My wife will be on stage. Folks that we both know, TJ Tajani, will be there. My buddy Rob Built, also from the Bigger Pockets community, will be there. And yeah, Bill put it on there. But if you guys use the promo code Bill, you guys save $500 off of your ticket. They're at $997 right now, so you guys are getting for $497, and that's a special promo just for the STR Wealth audience here.
I want everybody at home to understand I have never in my life done this before. I've never literally promoted another friendly competitor. I'll use the word competitor, right? their live event. And it's because I've gotten to know Tony, I've gotten to know Sarah, I know TJ who's going to be there, I know Rob Built's content is going to be there, and I'm sure there's going to be an emphasis on marketing and social media and the value of that. And that is something that most of you guys are missing. It's why I just did my marketing boot camp a few weeks ago. It's why Chris and I are doing another deal next week specifically on marketing. And I can't emphasize that enough. You know, Sarah and Tony are the gold standard, and it's way more than just marketing. I'm sure you're going to, what do you, ops, scale, sourcing deals, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, we're talking about medium-term rentals, rental arbitrage, glamping, because that's a really low-cost way to break into the space for a lot of folks. All the operational components, pricing, market analysis, market selection. We have my lender who's going to be there to talk about all the different strategies we use to fund our deals. So literally, it'll be A to Z of operations and management and acquisition for short-term.
One of those last things that you just said, your lender, right? And everybody pay attention. He said, our lender. I mean, he's talking about his and Sarah's lender. And I can't emphasize enough how powerful that is. When you walk up and you meet Tony, you meet Sarah at a break for the very first time, you get to go to lunch with them or whatever you guys end up doing. If Tony introduces you to his lender, that transfer of authority transfers over to you, even if you just met, right? So that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand, and kind of that intuitive, kind of subliminal, warm introduction, you know, when you're around people like yourself, and you have obviously some cred, street cred with that lender. You've probably done 10, 15, 20 deals with them,
Easily.
right?
Yeah, easily, man. And I show him with my audience, or I share with my audience, because I have so much trust in his ability to get things done. And dude, he's helped so many people in our community. So I'm happy to keep sharing them with folks.
So I want to go back to the social media thing, like in anything marketing. Where would you advise somebody? Hey, I just bought my first STR. I'm a nurse. I'm an attorney. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I've never done Instagram Reels. I've never even been on TikTok before. I've got a place, and you guys are heavily loaded in Joshua Tree. It could be in Joshua Tree or Indio or Blue Ridge, Georgia. You guys are also in the Smokies, right? Doesn't matter wherever it is. Where do I start? What do I do first? What's that first step?
I think the first purpose is to understand what your goal is with branding yourself and kind of building this presence online. For us, the biggest goal initially was to educate and share and help as many people, but obviously we wanted that to turn into deals and to dollars for the deals that we found. So all of the content that we created was kind of crafted around that specific purpose. If your goal is to use your social media really just to generate more direct bookings and things of that nature, that's going to have a different twist to it. So I think the first goal, Bill, is like identify what your purpose and what your goal is for creating this content.
I think I just love the nuggets that you drop, because I can just pick a couple of them out of there. And he said their goal was to help people when they started, with the purpose of trying to find deals, raise capital, whatever that is down the road. I'll tell everybody watching, and I've probably been doing this since before Tony was born, and Tony's better at it on social media than I am. There's no question. I'm just the 50-year-old guy that's not fun. I'm not entertaining like you guys are. You're either going to be really good at the information side, helping people, right? Or you need to be good at entertainment. And when you do what the Robinsons do, you can combine both, and that's kind of the gold standard, right? So the one thing that I think becomes consistent with Tony, TJ, Brendan, Mike Sjogren, Bill Faith, Sarah, Natalie Palmer, whoever, we are all starting with helping. And that kind of earns us the right to be able to sell something, right? And it kind of goes Gary Vaynerchuk, jab, 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 right hook.
Right hook, right.
And the one thing that I see in this industry is people don't leverage lead magnets enough. I'm sure you and Sarah have put out, you know, free ebooks, free white papers, free whatever. And it's not just the posts on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook. And I don't see a whole lot of people doing that for their properties. Like, you know, if I have as many properties in Joshua Tree as you do, I'm going to build a free PDF to target all of Los Angeles with some Facebook ads. Hey, download this, then I can start retargeting you, right? And those are some things that I think it's all about helping. And, you know, it's interesting. I just put out a reel last week, Tony, about 80% help, 20% sales. And I kind of lean more towards 90-10. And it's literally the least viewed reel I think I've ever posted. I just don't think that people get that. I think everybody gets so eager they want to go in straight for the sale. Do you agree with that?
I do, man, and I think that that's also what makes it difficult for people like us to kind of lead with that giving mentality first. Is that a lot of people have become jaded because there are so many, quote unquote gurus who are just trying to, shove things down their throat every time that they get on social. So, dude, I tell people when people pay to come to our events or our coaching program, whatever it is, it's like, guys, honestly, like 90% of what you're going to learn, if you watched every single one of my reels, my YouTube videos, my podcast, you're going to learn it all, right? But what I'm just giving to you when you pay for it is a more concise structure, and then the accountability and all those things. So, but yeah, man, I do think that there's some people out there that have made it harder for folks who really do focus on giving to kind of live up to that.
Right. How for our couples? Hey, Emil, how are you, buddy? Hey, Tammy. Hey, Michael Park. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions for Tony, just pop them down in the comments. We'd love to answer any of your questions. The hangout on the Caddo River. Awesome. Welcome. You and your wife both had W-2s prior to getting into STR, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
And now both of you are like all in on the educational side together, on the owning side together, on the management side together with your partnerships, right? Yeah. And, how do you balance that? Because I've been in business with my wife for 25 years, and there's good and bad times in that stuff. How does it work for you? What do you guys focus on to make that work?
That's a great question, Bill. And, I think a part of the reason why so many folks kind of gravitate towards me and Sarah is because we are doing this together as a husband and wife who are also business partners. And I think our advice is always the same. It's that I think what makes her and I work really well as husband and wife also makes us work really well as business partners. Like we are very similar in terms of our values, very different in terms of our personalities and our skill sets. And there are things naturally that Sarah's really good at that I would never be good at, things that I'm really good at that she would never be good at. And we just do our best to kind of stay out of each other's way. When it comes to analyzing deals and acquisitions, like she's never telling me, I don't think you should buy that deal, right? Because she knows that that's what I'm good at. And when it comes to designing the properties and getting them set up, like I don't tell her, babe, I don't think this paint color goes with this tile selection because that's not what I'm good at. So we really do our best.
We've all seen those properties in Joshua Tree. We all know you're not doing that.
Yeah. Even for our own house, Bill, like when we bought our primary residence, I picked the couch and I picked the television, and literally everything else my wife picks. So I'm not the guy to design.
When I pick one thing right, I mean, I'm taking that thing to my grave. It's like, man, I got the couch, or I picked out the bathroom tile, and I'm posting it everywhere on social, telling everybody I picked that out.
Right. So that's how it is. But honestly, I think that's what it is. Like we just trust each other. There's a high level of trust between the two of us, and we know what role each of us is supposed to play.
Awesome. I know we talk about a lot of vacation rental markets. You're in the Smokies, you're in Joshua Tree. I'm in almost all vacation rental markets across the country with my investments. So this is from Tawny Blair. This is a great question, and I'll let you take it first. What if we are not in a vacation town, but hospital and college towns? How do we market that?
Yeah. So I love this question because I think this applies to every market, whether it's vacation, whatever it is, right? As we're looking at exploring new markets, one of the things that I love to do first, and you can do this on Vrbo, Airbnb, whatever platform, but I love to look through the listings that are already there. And I try and identify the ones that are doing exceptionally well. Okay. And as I look through those properties or through those listings, I'm looking at the photos, I'm looking at the pricing strategy, I'm looking at the design, I'm looking at the amenities, I'm looking at the reviews, what are people saying? And inside of those 5 things that I just listed, there is a treasure trove of information on what you need to do to make your property stand out in that market. So for example, we were just looking at a property in West Virginia, Bill, and in this market in West Virginia, the majority of listings had not professional photos, like, poorly framed, poorly lit iPhone photos, super old design, right? You could tell it was like, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace scattered throughout the entire property. The reviews mentioned a lot of things that were missing. But these were all the properties that were doing the best in that market. So what that told me is if I just come in and even if I've just got really good design, good photos, and I maybe throw a hot tub in there, I'm already going to be able to compete at a higher level than the vast majority of properties in that market. So for me, whenever it comes down to like the marketing aspect and kind of how you stand out as a property, it's always assessing the competition and then understanding, okay, what do I need to do to be one step above most of those other listings at whatever price point you're competing at?
I love that. That is very, very sound information. Hopefully that helps you, Tani. I'm going to give you a couple of things that, and I don't own, but I have consulted a lot in this market. And I live in one of those towns here in Nashville, Tennessee. You know, if you're in the Davidson County area, I mean, you have, singular reason I don't own there is because of the bachelorette parties. I don't want the glitter bombs. I don't want the sex toys. I don't want the trashed weekend parties and all that type of stuff. So I haven't invested there. But there's a whole nother part of this town, and you mentioned college. Places for kids to rent semester. It used to be they do 9-month terms, right? Now they're all looking for like 3.5 to 4 months, which is essentially is like a travel nurse for a midterm rental, right? So you should be targeting them. The other thing on the corporate side, Noble dropped some incredible bombs at the conference about insurance and stuff like that, and I'll let him handle that. But from a marketing perspective, you should do two things. One, you should join the GBTA local association. That's the Global Business Travel Association. And here's why. Because it's like $300 a year. That's it. Go to a couple of meetings, meet the travel managers. Go on to LinkedIn and target travel managers because those are the ones that are controlling all of the corporate travel programs for people that are coming in. So like when Noble's getting all of the military and that type of stuff to come in, he's not trying to target the sergeants and the privates and the lieutenants, our individual bookers. He's trying to target the people that are sending them to Dallas or sending them to wherever and handling the travel program. So a travel manager for all of you guys in urban areas across the country is really the gatekeeper and the decision maker because they set the travel plan for that entire corporation. There was a guy here. I used to have TNA, which was Thursday Night Action, the WWE, competitor. And then I had Dollar General and I had Nissan when I was in the ground transportation space. All of them. And there was one guy, Jerry Harbor, that was doing all of their bookings. And it was like over $1 million worth of business. It's the same thing now. I've hooked about 5 hosts up here in Nashville with him, and they're controlling that same component. So think about, it's like if you have a wedding venue, I wouldn't want to sell directly to the brides. I want to sell to the wedding planners and the biggest ones in town so they can send 5 or 10 each in an annual basis. I closed 3 sales, I got 30 weddings, as opposed to trying to sell to 30 individual people. So you got Furnish Finder for hospitals, Tani. You can do you leverage LinkedIn, just like we talk about Facebook ads and running. You can do the exact same thing on LinkedIn, but you can target corporations, businesses, job titles, and tenure within a company. It's a great place to be able to do a lot of awesome targeting for urban. Tony, how did you find your off-market properties to pitch to investors?
I love this question. So honestly, most of ours came through relationships. We had a couple where we marketed directly to the sellers and we picked them up ourselves, but the vast majority came through relationships. So we found wholesalers in the markets that we worked with, and we found a lot of deals through them. We found builders in the markets that we operate in, and found off-market properties through that way. Some of them were listed on the MLS, but they were just like super distressed, and we found them. We got them that way. So we've leveraged every strategy. But I'd say if you have a market that you are interested in, I would try and find a really connected realtor in that market, someone who's done a lot of volume. Because even this is something that people oftentimes forget. Realtors who are high volume, a lot of times they get properties that maybe aren't suited to be listed on the MLS. And if you can be the person that says, hey, if you ever find anything that you don't feel comfortable listing, I'll buy it from you. That's a great and easy way for you to find more off-market deal flow. Facebook groups, other investors who have worked with wholesalers in your markets are a great way to find wholesalers who can give you off-market deals. And then, like I said, we found the builders that were operating in our market, and one relationship, we were able to buy 12 or maybe even more than that properties from one guy. Wow. Because he was just building them, and he wouldn't even list them. He would just give them to us, and we buy 3 or 4 at a time.
That's awesome. And was that at the beginning, or because you probably don't have to employ that strategy today because you've worked so hard on your social media and branding presence, right? You have deals that are coming to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's definitely gotten easier now where, I can open my inbox at any point in time and probably have a couple of deals that we're looking at. Someone just offered me a property management company a couple of weeks ago. There's another hotel that someone sent us. So now it kind of comes, but at the beginning, it's just kind of grinding away to build those relationships.
It's going to be the wholesaling Robinsons here pretty soon.
Yeah, shortly, right?
Tony, can you share how you structure your partnerships?
Yeah, Sharon, great question. So the first thing I'll say is that there is no right or wrong way to structure your partnerships. As long as you and that other person that you're working with are both happy with the deal and how it's structured, that's all that matters. Okay. But I'll tell you what levers you can kind of pull as you structure your partnership. And again, most of ours is just straight 50-50, but I'm gonna give you the levers you can pull when you're thinking about this. So first is equity. So how much equity will each person retain in that partnership? Could be 50-50, could be 70-30, could be whatever number you guys feel is fine. Next is profit split. So we actually have some deals where our equity percentage isn't exactly equal to our equity stake. So we have one deal where we own 40% of the property, but we keep 50% of the profits. Okay. So your profit split and your equity don't always have to be the same. Next is capital contributions, or who's going to bring the down payment, the closing costs, the startup costs. Are you guys going to split that, where one person brings all of it? Maybe you bring 25%, the other person brings 75. So there's another lever there for you to pull. You have what's called capital recapture. So say that partner A brings 100% of the funds that are needed, and maybe it's, I don't know, whatever, $100,000, let's say for round numbers, and say 5 years down the line, you and that partner sell that property and there's $300 of equity when you sell. So if you have a capital recapture in place, what happens is, of that 300,000, 100,000 goes back to the partner who put up that initial capital. So they get repaid first. And then you split that remaining $200,000 at whatever equity split you agreed upon. So some of our deals, actually only one of our deals has a capital recapture. And the other thing to consider too is like your sweat equity. Okay. I think most people grossly underestimate the value that comes along with the sweat equity. If you are the person that's finding the deal, hustling to find the deal, if you're the person that's going to stay at that property for a week or two to get it fully furnished and set up, if you're the person who's going to be answering phone calls at, midnight on Christmas Eve when your partner's sleeping, like those are things that are real that are going to happen, and you want to value that. So you have two ways of handling the sweat equity. You can do it how we do it, where most of our deals, our sweat equity is just built into our equity ownership of the property. Or you could set it aside separately to say, hey, maybe I brought 25% of the capital, so I'm going to hold 25% of the equity, but I'm also going to get a 15 or 20% management fee for my daily work inside of that property as well. So those are all the levers you can kind of look at, Sharon, as you're thinking about how to structure that partnership.
That is great insight. So those of you that are listening, I'm going to ask Tony a super important question. He has no idea what I'm about to ask him, and I have no clue what the answer is going to be, but I promise you it's going to be correct. I assume when you're doing a partnership, you are not, I assume you're doing it most likely in an LLC, but it could really be any entity. You can talk about that. But once that LLC is done, once the articles of incorporation are done, I assume you guys have an operating agreement and the buy-sell agreement that you didn't buy from Rocket Lawyer, correct?
Yeah. So we have our business structure is a little unique. So I'll talk about the structure, then I'll talk about the documentation. So
you just went to that Facebook group and said, hey, who's got a buy-sell agreement and operating agreement I can copy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. We just took it, whatever we could find online. So, so we have our core real estate business, which is me, my wife, and her cousin. Like the three of us make up our company. It's called Alpha Geek Capital. And the way that we structured it is Alpha Geek Capital has its own LLC. And instead of creating a separate new LLC with each partner, what we've done is we created a joint venture like operating agreement that says Alpha Geek Capital is, one party, partner LLC is the second party. And then that joint venture kind of outlines how that partnership is structured. So we don't have a unique LLC created for each property, but what we get at the end of the year is just like a Schedule E that says, hey, Alpha Geek has this much, so this partner owns that much, and it goes to our separate tax returns. But yeah, we do have an operating agreement that is super clear on equity, on profits, on how long we're going to hold the property. So most of our new partnerships have a 5-year limit, and the only way that we'll extend beyond that 5 years is if both partners agree to extend that partnership. We have things that say, hey, what happens if one partner wants out where the other one doesn't? What happens if we don't want to manage it anymore? Like, what does that look like? So we try and think of all of the different scenarios that could come up in a partnership, and we try and address them upfront with that agreement. And we have a real estate attorney that drafts all of our contracts for us. And I don't know, we probably spent several $1,000s over the last couple of years. Just like every time we have a partnership, we're like, oh, we forgot something. Then we go back for the next one. And, oh, here's something that happened in this partnership we didn't think about. We should update it again. So it's this kind of ever evolving document that we use for each partnership.
Can't emphasize that enough, folks. A lot of you that are going in and really going into the Facebook groups, hey, do you have a partnership agreement that I can, download and copy? And then, Tony and I are using that to start billing Tony's, STR LLC. And then Tony says, Bill, I don't really like you anymore. I'm going to go on my own way. And we don't have that buy sell. We don't have that operating agreement. That's when things get really bad. And take it from a guy. I've done 27 startups, 21 I've had partners. I love actually having partners. I try to seek those, that are mentors, really, that have more experience than I when I go into a partnership. But a lot of us don't view our investing as a real business. It's almost like a hobby, right? Or buying a stock. And what I heard Tony say is he's paying his attorney, his real estate specific attorney, to draft that kind of that master partnership document. And then it's updated when they think of things. And one of the other nuggets that I pull out of what Tony was saying is if the partner wants to leave for whatever reason, or if Sarah and Tony decide they don't want to host, if that's inside of that 5 years, I promise you there's some type of penalty or a benefit for the other side of that equation. And if you don't nail those things down up front, believe me, you will get screwed on the back end when you try to separate.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Bill, because it's definitely in there. And like for us, to give our partners peace of mind because they're bringing the capital, they're carrying the debt. What we told them is that if we walk away under 5 years, we don't get anything. So we just we get whatever, fees we collect up until that point, but all of our equity goes to zero. So they know that we're truly incentivized to kind of stay there in the long term. And there's some I won't say negative things, but there's some penalties for them if they walk away earlier. But just one last thing on the partnership structure. There's a book I read. It's called The Partnership Charter by a guy named David Gage. And it's not about real estate partnerships, it's just about business partnerships in general. But there's a lot of questions that he kind of forces you to ask throughout that book that are good for any kind of business partnership.
That's awesome. I think what we just talked about goes for co-hosts too, just FYI, and property managers. And one of the things that I see, it may not even be that, Tony, I'm the investor and I want to leave, or Tony's doing what he's doing and he's managing and he wants to leave. It just may be that, we get tired of whatever. You've got to have that exit defined. A lot of people nail the operating agreement, but they don't have the buy-sell inside of it or a separate buy-sell agreement either. Tony, I want to shift gears real quick for a second. I mean, you guys own like half of Joshua Tree, right? Tell me about the market. I get questions about Joshua Tree. I've never been interested. I left California 21 years ago. I will never invest in that state. I'll never go back as a business owner. Not saying it's not right for you guys that live there and all that type of stuff, but someday you'll move to the South, to God's country where I live. Tell me about that market. A lot of people, think it's saturated. A lot of people are still investing there. I think I see you guys are still investing there. What do you think about that market right now?
Yeah, I mean, so I think, and this is true, I think for a lot of the big vacation destination markets that blew up over the last year. So Joshua Tree, the Smoky Mountains, Blue Ridge, Destin, like a lot of these places.
All the traditionals, right?
All the traditionals, right? What you've seen in all of those markets is the price points, the entry price points in those markets have increased pretty dramatically, but the revenue in those markets has not increased at the same rate that the purchase price has. So like, for example, we have some of our properties where our mortgage is like $1,400 a month, and we're probably grossing $5,000-$6,000 a month on that property. That's an amazing deal. That's going to be harder to get in 2023. So we are seeing that if you're trying to buy now in those markets, the ability to get a really strong cash on cash return is going to be hard. I think from a gross revenue standpoint, you can still do pretty well if you buy the right property, but the margins are going to be smaller. So honestly, and this is what we're doing right now, Bill, is that we're slowing down our acquisitions in JT for that reason, because it has become more difficult to find deals that allow allow us to get those super beefy cash on cash returns. So what we're looking for now is more of those secondary and tertiary markets where, they aren't talked about by every big Airbnb investor, and maybe they're more regional kind of drivable locations. And we're trying to find those markets that don't have an abundance of experienced operators so that we can go in and apply what we've learned from these other markets, drop them on the smaller town, and then do really well there.
Kernville, Porterville, Modesto, Central California. Are you guys?
Yeah, I don't know if we're going like Central California, but we're looking at West Virginia. We're looking at parts of Western New York, New Mexico. So just a lot of these different states that don't have these big national draws, but something that's really strong regional.
I've been a huge proponent of North New Mexico, just north of Taos and kind of the ski areas up there, because nobody talks about it. It's all Colorado in that area, but. The boutique hotels are the craze right now. And the interesting thing to me, I'm not investing there. I've kind of slowed down. I just bought a place in Montana. I'm probably done for the year, but I say that I found a place on the Bourbon Trail yesterday that I'm seriously might make an offer on. And I've never thought I would ever invest into Kentucky, but it's like one of those deals, it's really market by market. I'm sure if somebody could present you a deal, you could find a good one. You'd still invest into Joshua Tree, but it's got to be the right deal, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Here's a question from somebody. I'm not familiar with this platform. You might be familiar with it. Are either of you utilizing BN Sell It in your STRs? And if so, what types of products are you listing for sale? Oh, it sounds like, are you familiar with that?
No, I've actually never heard of that before. So I don't feel like I can give a qualified answer.
I assume that is like the third-party vendor where you're selling stuff inside of your STR amenities or whatever that would be, bikes or, renting, or I can't, what was it? There was another company that does that too. But if that's what that is, neither Tony or I are aware of it. I'll just give you a piece of advice. I think those things are applicable and you can generate extra revenue based on your ADR. You can get away with that, in my opinion, sub $500. You get $1,000 over in a luxury experience and you try to nickel and dime and sell people stuff, then they can get a little bit turned off because they're a much more discerning traveler. I look at that as like the Holiday Inn customer versus, the Four Seasons or the JW Marriott. They want the free water. They don't want to pay $4 for a bottle of Fiji when you check into a JW Marriott and you're paying $600 a night. Right. So just be very careful with your ADR and how you would impact that.
Just one thought to add on to that, Bill, too. Like the idea of adding additional revenue streams is like part of like the second phase of my master plan. So we've been working with Mark Simpson to get our direct booking website built out. So that's almost done. So we're going to hopefully hire someone to kind of do all the marketing for that. But once we get that up and rolling, the second phase of like what I'm really trying to focus on this year is exactly that, like the additional revenue streams. And, we're in JT. There's a lot of like experience-based companies that are out there that give affiliate commissions. We have some properties that are on like 2.5 acres that have like just a bunch of land. So like, can we add like a Turo rental for something for them to take out like a Jeep or something? So just identifying what those additional revenue streams are, I think will be big as we move into this next phase of what like the STR space looks like.
I agree 100%. There is probably the best property management company that we could all model off of as hosts or co-hosts or PMs is Abode, based out of Park City, Utah, in Jackson. And I actually have a client that's their concierge. They do almost $4 million a year in concierge business. And when I say 4 million a year, that's gross profit. They're doing like 16, 17, 18 gross. Now it's a completely different market than what we live in, right? But you're 100% correct. You can charge for that stuff. I mean, I charge for grocery delivery. Even at my high-end places, there are certain things I will charge for, but I'm not going to try to upsell them inside my property at luxury properties. But I love that idea. You think like all the Scottsdale's so freaking saturated right now, like around Old Town and that type of stuff. But you mentioned ATVing or Jeep rides into the desert, and just all these experiences that you can have, especially in a market like that. And if you have like Stripe integration or something, even if the vendor doesn't understand how to pay an affiliate commission, if you can walk in and have it set up for them to make it easy to where they have to do nothing except for write you a check once a month or whatever it is, it's going to be much easier for them. Oh my God, you can do that for me and refer me business? I'm in. I'll give you 5% or 10%.
Right. Yeah, I love that idea.
Mount, I love Mount actually. I like Mount. Once again, I think a lot of it has to do with, what we're trying to do on. And I told Maddie from Mount, I said, I'm probably not going to be your customer, but I do love what you guys are doing with all of the upsells at a certain price point and below. That's why they were at the conference and why I absolutely love them. I think it's market by market as well. So I look at two big things, at least for me, and I'd love for you to chime into this, Tony. It seems like most of my properties are a long drive I'm in those tertiary markets, those secondary markets. Like I'm not in the heart of Gulf Shores. Well, one property is, but another one it's a 30-minute drive out to Fort Morgan. I'm in a very remote lake that it's 40 minutes to the nearest grocery store. My Montana place, it's 20 minutes to get back into Whitefish. All these things. So the easier you can make that experience for the guest to where they feel they want to get away to the middle of nowhere, but they feel like they're right in town. Even if you don't have Uber Eats or Postmates or Instacart or whatever, you got to set up your cleaning crew, your handyman, some boots on the ground to be able to do that stuff for you. So number one for me really is it's early luggage drop-offs, and sometimes we will do that at the property, sometimes off property as well. I have done meet and greets where I've had somebody meet the guest staying at the airport with a van, take them to the house. They just wanted to be secluded for the entire time. Extra cleans, just anything that you can think of, just make a list and you can charge for it. What do you do any of that stuff currently, Tony?
We're not yet, Bill. But like you said, I've got a long list of the things that I want to implement. It's just trying to figure out the logistics for it. But dude, I love the idea of the airport transfer, because a lot of ours aren't super close to the airports either. And being able to coordinate that for folks, I think would be super, super beneficial for a lot of them.
I only thought of it because I used to be in the limo business. I would never think of it if I didn't do that, for a living for 6 years. But that's actually my guy that does a concierge service for a boat in Park City. He has like the largest ground transportation company, and he was a client and coaching client in Salt Lake City and Park City. But he just kind of started doing the concierge stuff by default, right? And that can be a million things. That can be like at my lake house, we do boat delivery. I have an open slip. So instead of the guests having to drive 45 minutes down to the marina, drop somebody off, drive back, then do the boat and all that type of stuff, literally my concierge team will pick up the boat, drop it off, gas it up, return it, and then we just invoice them. No problem. So those things I think can be specific. Ski markets, literally picking up, ski rentals or dropping their equipment off for them after checkout if they want to ski for 2 hours and get a late checkout at noon. A lot of those things we need to be doing, and I think a lot of them we need to be doing them for free, right now, at least some of them, not the big ones, right? But the more of the small things that we can do for free and put it into our marketing kit, the bigger advantage we'll have, because most people won't do that stuff. Yeah. So Tony, I want to take just a second. I want to jump back. I know you've got your event coming up. You and I and Sarah got to talk about it at the STR Wealth Conference. Tell the viewers, who's it for and what are a couple of things that they can experience, when they're there?
Yeah. So our event, the STR Summit's coming up April 10th through the 12th in Austin, Texas. So right around the corner here. And again, if you guys use promo code Bill, you'll save $500 off of your ticket, special just for the folks on this call here now. But really, Bill, we tried to make sure that we were catering to both folks that were brand new to Airbnb investing, as well as folks who maybe have a couple deals under their belt. So the goal is to really walk people through the 10 steps you need to follow to start, manage, and scale your business. So we'll talk about basics of market selection, deal analysis. Once you actually find your deals, we have Amy Majuri. If you guys don't know Amy's an expert in raising private capital for real estate deals, and she's phenomenal. And she's going to talk about how you can raise all the capital you need to fund your deals. We'll have my lender there who's going to talk about financing options, finding off-market deals. I have my friend Derek Acuff, who's also based out of Texas, and he's a big-time wholesaler in Texas, about how he structures and finds all of his off-market deals. So everything on the acquisition phase. Once you buy your property, and it's set up, we'll talk everything operations. So pricing strategies. Price Labs will be there to talk about all the tools that they offer and how to really get the most out of their tool. We'll talk about design and amenities and how you can set your property up. We'll talk about managing guests and how to do that without losing your mind, and really just all the pieces that go into scaling your business. So the goal is an A to Z kind of 1, 2, 3 step of starting, managing, and scaling that portfolio.
That's awesome. Once again, that's strsummit.com. Use my name, Bill. You'll save $500. I know they have limited seats available. So if you do want to get on that, that starts in just over a week.
Yeah, man,
So
right around the corner.
take action today. Wish I could be there with you, Tony. Maybe next time we'll get together. Thank you very much for joining me today. Thank you for all the knowledge bombs you and your lovely wife shared at the STR Wealth Conference last week. I'm definitely want to have you back again. Everybody, thanks for joining us. If you have any questions, just drop them down in the comments. If you're watching this on the recording, whether it's on YouTube or if it's in Facebook, just tag Tony, tag myself, and we will continue to answer your questions, because that's the great thing. I love Tony pours into his community. Hopefully you feel like I pour into you, and we just want to see everybody be successful. Thanks for joining us on a Saturday. Happy hosting, everybody.